welcome everybody. I'm Vivi Harrison. I'm the Director of Education for the South Carolina Wildlife Federation. And on the screen, you can see Bev Roberts. She is our newest employee. So welcome, Bev.
Thank you. It's been one whole week and I'm in training.
We're excited to have you and look forward to you joining in all kinds of fun stuff from here on out. And so, again, I'm going to be helping with logistics. So if you have any questions that you want Jay to field for you, just type in the chat box. Make sure if you want everyone to see it, that you select everyone in the chat box. But if you just want to send it to panelists, so just make sure you're sending it to the right spot, because I all the time send it to just host and panelists. So make sure you have that selected correctly. We will save a little bit of time at the end too. So if there's questions at the end, we can pop those out. It is being recorded, like I said, so we will make it available. It'll be up on our YouTube channel, but we will send out a link about that later. Yes, hi Corinne. I'm excited that you're going to be in there too. So let me go ahead and introduce our speaker. And if you've been on some of our stuff before, you know him. So we wanted to say thank you to Jay Keck. He is our the South Carolina Wildlife Federation's Habitat Education Manager, and he is going to kick it off with some absolutely wonderful winter wildlife. So take it away.
All right. So while I'm trying to share my screen here, somebody had, I think Catherine had a question about leaving out a pumpkin for squirrels. I don't know. I've never done that. Whenever I throw my pumpkins out, they just seem to rot. So something's getting to them, whether that's a fungus or, little animals that you can't even see, bacteria, all sorts of things that are breaking that down. Maybe some grubs and some beetles are lucky enough to grab that. And then maybe the squirrel eats those. I don't know. Throw some peanut butter on it and see what happens. If all else fails, just throw peanut butter on it and something will come to the pumpkins. I can almost guarantee you that. So good luck with those. So thanks, BB. Bev, what's going on? It's awesome to see you on your first webinar, at least on this side of it. So yeah, winter wildlife. It's a cool time of year. I hope y'all can see my son said, why do you have my Christmas tree that's usually in his room on the couch in the frog? And I was like, because I wanted to make this festive, little flair for this webinar. So I hope y'all like it. So let's talk about what winter wildlife is doing. And if y'all want to say this out loud wherever you're sitting, wondering where winter wildlife is wandering, is my corny little, I guess, first page title. And you probably like this picture a lot more than the title of this. And this is from a friend of mine. His name's Vance Solseth. Zach Steinhauser is an awesome photographer as well. Cameron Foster, one of our board members. I've got some pictures or photos, kind of sprinkled in from those guys. But this is a composite that Vance did, and it's of blue-winged teal. And we're going to have a duck class. Well, I don't know. It's a winter bird / duck class at Finney Swamp in January. We haven't posted it yet, but we will soon. And it was loaded up with some of these blue-winged teal and some northern shovelers. So if you've never seen them and you want to go see them, heads up for that class that we'll be advertising pretty soon. But these ducks are coming down here. You think of them, they're when they feed, they're puddle ducks, right? They kind of tip their bodies over, so their neck and probably the first half of their body is down. Their tails are up, their butts are up. And that's how they feed. Well, if that water is frozen up north, it's kind of hard for them to do that. So one of the reasons that, here, let me hit this, here, hold on one second. They migrate is because of food, right? And then some, they can actually freeze to death. So, the monarch butterfly, I've heard, Billy McCord is with DNR. I think he might be retired, but he's down in Charleston. He's like the monarch guru. So if you want to learn more about monarchs, we've got a class, but he also has a class through DNR that you can find. Just Google it and you'll probably be able to find it. But his name's, again, Billy McCord. and it's a wonderful class, but he's found some overwintering monarchs in around the Charleston area. I think specifically, and maybe you might know, the Francis Marion Forest. So, not all of them go down to Mexico. A lot of them, just a small number overwinter here, and then, down in Georgia and Florida, and then obviously down in Mexico. But they need to migrate to find the food, to stay out of the cold. Even Gulf fritillaries, those butterflies that come to the passion flower vine like crazy. If you've never seen one and you want to see them, you want to see their caterpillars, all you have to do is plant some passion flower. Nurseries are starting to carry it more and more. You'll see the caterpillar the adult female lay the egg, and then a couple weeks later you'll see these beautiful orange caterpillars with black spikes. They're harmless, but those overwinter too down south, so they migrate. They'll move northward during the springtime, and then they'll go through different phases, and some will pass away, and then finally that last group of them will migrate and then come back. So not the monarch isn't the only butterfly that migrates. And then my friends Bob and Mickey from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, they also migrate down to Florida. So it's not just insects, it's not just birds and ducks and geese that migrate. Humans migrate too, because they don't want to stay up there in that beautiful -20-degree weather that they can sometimes have up there. Let me just shift something on my computer so I can see better. So this one says, why would we migrate? The other one says, why we migrate. This says, why would we migrate? So not all butterflies and moths have to migrate. Some of them can produce glycerol, and that acts kind of like an antifreeze or an antifreeze. Which is pretty darn cool that animals can do that, and insects aren't the only ones that can do that. So this gorgeous butterfly, like the mourning cloak, which it's not seen too often here in the Midlands or down at the coast, I don't think. At least at the coast, but here in the Midlands we don't really see that one too often. You got to get up to the mountains and then go up further north to see this gorgeous butterfly. But they are seen, here and there. So if you have a trip into the mountains this winter, looking tree holes, don't put your hands in there though. You might not get a finger or two back, and that would be bad. And then I might get a nasty email. But look at into bark crevice, the crevices in bark, maybe under, maybe a loose piece of bark. And in leaf litter. Notice how many times I say leaf litter, or at least you see it, listed on my presentation. But this one's kind of uncommon here, but one that we do have, I think it's I think it's considered in a group called the angel wings. They just have gorgeous wings, but it's called the question mark butterfly. It has this cool little question mark on the underside of the wing. But that one overwinters here too. And again, if you have, you still have trees, you have brush piles, you have a lot of leaf litter, you're providing a winter home for that adult butterfly. And insects, again, aren't the only ones that have to stay or get to stay. Birds that could migrate easily, they have wings. Most of our warblers go down to South America or Central America or Mexico or the southern tip of Florida. Palm warblers are all over Florida. When I go to Universal Studios, because if birding didn't make me super cool, like we love Harry Potter too, and so do I. And so now I know y'all think I'm really cool because I love Harry Potter, but we go down to Universal Studios. We have 3 years in a row, and take the family, and we see palm warblers all over the place. And I remember eating a snack with my youngest son, and right under the bench that we were sitting on was a palm warbler just pumping its tail. Some of those stay here though, especially on the coast of South Carolina, those palm warblers. But not all of them have to, birds have to migrate down to Central America or South America. Pine warblers, they're year round here in South Carolina. We tend to get more in the winter time, because the ones up north do come down, but they don't have to go all the way down to Central America or South America. So a lot of their winter habitat or range is right here in South Carolina. So sometimes you might count 6, 8, 10, 12 pine warblers at your feeder if you put out some suet or some black oil sunflower seeds that they like. Let's see, Canada geese, I don't know when, but a few of them figured out that you don't have to migrate back, north. So, if you live on a golf course or Lake Murray or some other place that has water and plenty of food in South Carolina, you probably know that Canada geese don't have to migrate anymore. Black and white warblers, we just did the Christmas bird count yesterday at Congaree National Park, and we got to see a black and white warbler. Now, some of those do migrate down. Y'all know if you've ever heard me talk about birds, I'm a huge supporter of Birds and Beans coffee. A lot of those pine or black and white warblers will go to those shade-grown coffee farms that still have trees above the coffee plants, and they'll overwinter there. But here in South Carolina, we do have some black and white warblers, some yellow-throated warblers that will overwinter. I've even seen, a record of a prairie warbler at that Finney Park that I was telling you about earlier, where we're going to go in January, probably in like January or February. And that one, a lot of them do winter in Florida, so not too far, of a migrant, those prairie warblers. All right, so glycerol. It's a neat substance. And I'm not a chemist and I don't know how all that stuff really works, but I know they produce it and it stops them from freezing. So from what I understand, from what I read, it seems like, their cells don't freeze, even though some around their cells can produce, some frost or some frozen, material. The cell doesn't freeze, which keeps these animals alive, whether you're an insect or a cool gray frog like this. So there's Cope's gray tree frogs, and then there's gray tree frogs. They're basically visually identical. One sounds a little bit different than the other, and that's how most people tell them apart. So I'm not going to get into all of that, but they are here in South Carolina, and I love finding them. This is actually a picture from our yard, and they just are curled up like a little baby on that stick. And me and my family, my 2 boys and my wife, we always love, as soon as we find something like this, we just start hollering for the rest of the family to come. It's either a snake or a frog or something else that's really cool. And we see quite a few of these here in Chapin, where we are in the Midlands, in the Piedmont. Let's see. So yeah, some of its fat reserves can be transformed into glycerol. And then they overwinter in bark and tree crevices, and once again, leaf litter. So if you do have leaves, if you have trees, I know y'all have leaves. So, do something, if try not to put those leaves, those beautiful, beautiful leaves that are so, good for so many reasons. Don't put them in a plastic bag and let somebody haul them off. If you can, at least make a pile somewhere and let them decompose. But even better, if you can, have them naturally just stay where they fell. And you're going to support not only, like things like grubs, like beetle larvae, but you're going to support, vertebrates like this, which also is food. So let's listen to this song, because I want y'all to hear this whenever they start breeding in March. I want y'all to find this if you've never seen one before. And y'all know I get a lot of the sounds for the birds from Merlin Bird ID app, or allaboutbirds.org, but you can go to the Savannah River Ecology Lab, and they have sounds for most of the toads and frogs that we have in South Carolina and Georgia. Not all of them, but most of them. And so my thing with birding is, if you hear it, you have a chance of seeing it. If you don't see it, you're not going to see it, obviously. But if you hear it, you can try to find that animal. So learn the songs and the sounds, and you have a chance of seeing that. And I don't know if y'all heard the sound that sounded kind of like a young sheep or well, yeah, probably a sheep. It's a narrow mouthed toad, and it's probably my favorite toad. But they have this really weird sound, and yeah, it kind of reminds me of growing up on Lake Murray. It reminds me of my parents in a way. So other frogs to listen for during winter months. And as far as I know, from what I read, it seems like the chorus frog can produce that glycerol too. And they'll also, kind of overwinter under logs, under rocks, in muddy areas around little wetlands like this. But listen to this, and if you know the chorus frog, you've probably heard that it sounds, the sound of it sounds like you took your finger or thumb and you just kind of scraped like an old fashioned comb. I don't know if anybody uses combs anymore, but my dad always had one in his pocket. But you just take your finger and you kind of go down the bristles like that. But here is that sound. And this was January 5th this year here in Chapin. Notice that little wetland right there with the cattails, right? That's telling us there's water there, or at least it's really damp. So that's a sound. I know that spring isn't too far away when I hear that sound. Now that was very early January 5th again. But I hear that sound, and I know my migratory birds that are down in Central America and South America, are going to be here in a few months when I hear that. But you see again, found in low leafy plants and leaf litter. Okay, so I just wanted to kind of reinforce how important leaf litter is to, again, not only the insects, but to everything else. You can find them around wetlands. We hear them, the dirt road is right here where I live, and there's houses, there's probably 20 houses on my road, and hear them every single year. And they use the water in the wet, low areas around the neighborhood, even the roads. So pretty common frog. It's pretty hard to tell the difference between a upland chorus frog and a southern chorus frog. But the upland, I want to say their territory comes to where I am here in right above the fall line at the lower end of the Piedmont, and then the southern, goes from the coastal plain, down to the coast. So let me go to the next slide. And after the chorus frogs, and every single year, this is what we hear. We have the spring peepers. It's such a great, we have a dog, we have a lab. And so when I have to let her out at night, I tend to hear that sound, and it just kind of makes me happy. And once again, I know that our birds are coming back up pretty soon from the tropics. So I love hearing the chorus frogs and then the spring peepers. And many die. Obviously, y'all know that many insects die during the winter. And so, think about all those nutrients that are going into the ground. I'm not sure how many animals eat dead insects, but they decompose somehow. So either a fungus is getting to us, some bacteria, or some microorganisms are getting to it. So, it's a good thing that happens during the winter time. And this spider, isn't wandering anywhere. And that's a good thing, because spiders, their goal on the planet Earth is to eliminate every human out there. They have 8 legs, and they're just scary looking. So, we don't mind this picture right here. And I'm just joking, of course. I do have a fear of spiders because they're so spooky looking. But they are. Next time you watch a bluebird, I always talk about this in bird classes. But watch a bluebird with a good pair of binoculars, and you'll see how many spiders they eat. And I don't kill spiders anymore. I used to, even in the house. I'll take a little piece of paper and try to scoop it up. I build up my courage and scoop it up. I usually have a glass over it, and then I put it outside. And while my male friends, look at me and they can't wait to make fun of me whenever I come back in, because I save even the spiders anymore. So anyhow, spiders are good. They're good food for wildlife. What else do they overwinter as insects? So larva, pupa, nymphs, eggs. So, woolly bears were all over Pennsylvania when I lived there for 5 years. I see them in the mountain areas. They're not as common, where I am here, but I love the woolly bear caterpillar. The color is really neat. They can be abundant where they are. But that's the larva of the moth, the adult, right? So they will overwinter in leaf litter. So please create or keep your leaf litter. Overwintering as nymphs. So dragonflies, mayflies, damselflies. Thank God those things aren't, 4 or 5 feet, wide, or, they're bigger than what they are. I've actually seen a dragonfly larva or a nymph eat a minnow one time, which is pretty incredible for an insect to be able to do that. And then, some of the grubs burrow underground, the grubs for the adult or soon to be adult beetles. And then you have the moths that pupate underground as cocoons, and then they'll crawl out as adults in the springtime or early summertime. And if you don't, overwinter as, something that's active, or semi-alive, you're an egg. So Carolina mantis, you can see that egg sac right here. It's elongated. And then you got the Chinese mantis, which shouldn't be here. It was brought over, I think, in the late 1800s or the early 1900s. And that one's a lot different looking, almost looks like a bell, right? So this one's a lot bigger. I think it can get to around 4, maybe 5 inches. And it actually predates on this much smaller Carolina mantis, unfortunately. But anyhow, they're very cool to see in your yard, and that is a way of overwintering. So the adults died in the winter, and then the young will be born when it warms up. If you ever, y'all might have had a Christmas tree with a praying mantis egg sac in it, and then all of a sudden it's nice and warm for those eggs. And in a couple weeks, you might have these little baby praying mantis all over the house, which can be fun for some people and probably terrifying for others.
Jay.
Yes, ma'am.
So we did have a question about an invasive Juro spider in Northeast Georgia. Do you know anything about those?
Yeah. I saw my first one in Clemson, the Clemson Botanical Garden this September. All I know is that they're exotic. They're not from here. I don't, we were with David Coyle, and, as far as he knew, also that I think they're so new that we don't know how they're affecting, the other spiders or other wildlife. So if you do know something, or you have a link on that, I'd love to see it and read more about it, because I didn't even know that spider existed until our insect walk back in September at the Botanical Garden. But I do have a buddy that lives in Atlanta, and we shared our fear of spiders at the College of Charleston. And he texted me it was probably a couple months ago, and was asking me about it because he had one in his yard and he didn't like that. So I'm learning along with y'all. What's that?
Do you think that those will die off, or do you think those overwinter? Do you know? Just curious.
I don't know. If they do die off as adults, I mean, spiders also have egg sacs, just like they're not just like them, but similar to the mantis that will overwinter. So if the Jura spider is laying eggs and those can overwinter, those spiders will come out, a fresh set of spiders will come out, or a group of spiders will come out this spring or summer. So even if the adults die, there should be eggs left behind. Whenever we're talking about an exotic or an invasive species, we hope that's not the case. But I want to say that they have been successful. I'm not positive, but since people are seeing them more and more, I can only assume that, they're successful at getting at least the eggs to overwinter here. But we, out at Congaree National Park yesterday, we were looking at some sparrows in this prairie area, and we found praying mantis egg sacs, but we also found, they almost look like a purple martin gourd, miniaturized. It was only about probably an inch, maybe inch and a half tops high, and probably about an inch wide, gourd looking thing. And it was, it's an egg sac of some kind of spider. So if the Jora spider is doing that and they don't get frozen to death over the winter, y'all will probably have those Jora spiders this spring and summer, unfortunately. It's a beautiful spider, but just shouldn't be here.
Yeah, I'll see if I can't find anything and put that in the follow-up email. So thanks.
Awesome. And on to mistletoe, which, I didn't know this before I started writing the article for the magazine, but yeah, some people call it poop on a stick, and it comes from this old Anglo-Saxon these words. I don't know if you pronounce it mistle, and then tan or tan, but mistle meaning dung, and then tan meaning twig. And then you get mistletoe, but so dung on a twig, so poop on a stick. It kind of takes the romantic side of mistletoe out of the equation when you think of it like that. But it's a really cool reason, and this is one of them. With something a plant like this that has so much history, not just here. I think there's a couple hundred different types, not just here in the United States, but in a lot of parts of the world. There might be a couple different reasons why they're called something, right? And they might be similar, but the one that I like the most involves birds, of course, and so their seeds are really sticky. And so if I'm a bird, and I do love mistletoe as a bird, right? So I'm gobbling up those seeds or those berries, and they either stick to my bill, and I don't know if you've ever seen a bird do this, but it'll clean its bill on a branch. So it'll wipe its bill on a branch. Watch them again. Get a good pair of binoculars and watch this, and you can either see them eat caterpillars or spiders or all sorts of insects, or you might see them eat berries, and you'll see them clean their bills, and it's really a neat thing to see. And so the berries and the seeds are just really sticky. So they'll either stick on the bill, and then they'll wipe them on a part of the tree or a branch, or as they produce their waste from eating the seeds, they'll stick onto the twig. So then you get your poop on a stick explanation, which I think is kind of neat. They don't really have I guess real roots, but they have root-like structures. And so that seed got pooped out by the bird or got wiped onto it by the bird, and all of a sudden these root-like structures enter the let's say the skin of the tree, and then they start stealing, I guess they're semi-parasitic, water minerals and other nutrients. They can produce their own or photosynthesize, so they can produce their own food, right? So if that tree dies for some reason, and it's a snag, a dead tree still standing, that mistletoe still can survive. I'm not sure how long, but since it can produce its own food through photosynthesis, it can survive at least for a little while. So it doesn't have to have a perfectly live host plant to survive, although you do see them on oaks. It's called oak mistletoe. Pecan trees a lot, hickories, I think, maybe maples, I'm not sure, but we tend to see them in oaks quite a bit around here. So really cool plant. And one of my favorite things about this plant, and I love my caterpillars too, and my butterflies and moths, it is the host plant for one of the most spectacular butterflies we have in South Carolina. And if you haven't seen this, and it might make you like mistletoe, a lot of people don't like mistletoe. They think it like kills trees. And I guess if the tree was in really bad shape and you had a ton of mistletoe, it might could kill it, but the tree was probably weakened by something else anyways. But if you don't like mistletoe, if you fall in love with this butterfly, I feel like you'll at least want some mistletoe around, because without having mistletoe, the caterpillar's food source, you won't have this great purple hairstreak. But this is found in South Carolina. It looks like something that you would find in Belize or South America or Costa Rica, somewhere in Central America. But again, right here in our awesome diverse state, we have this gorgeous butterfly. So again, its host plant is mistletoe. So the caterpillar can, just like the monarch caterpillar eats milkweed, the great purple hairstreak caterpillar eats mistletoe. So we're still just, on winter stuff, winter wildlife. So let's talk about those chickadee brains. I think somebody in the chat box at the beginning, she was talking about, was talking about the birds that they love. And I'm hoping y'all will like the chickadee even more after this. And the hippocampus, which is just kind of a fun word to say, and it makes you kind of sound really smart, is the portion of the brain that kind of helps you with spatial memory. So, remembering where things are, where you left them. And I guess mine is pretty bad because I'm always looking for my keys, my sunglasses. And sometimes, one time, and this has happened to my wife, and she's a lot smarter than I am, but one time I was talking on the phone, and while I was talking on the phone, I was looking for my phone. And I was talking to my mom, and I was like, I'm trying to find my phone. She was like, Jay, you're talking to me on it. But that's also happened to my wife. So again, that makes me feel better, I guess. But anyhow, the hippocampus area grows new brain cells during the late summer and fall, enabling the bird to remember where it has stored its food for the winter. And they store thousands of seeds. So think about that. I think do an experiment. Just go outside, and if you're not allergic to peanuts, bury 50 peanuts, wait a day or two, and see if you can remember where all of those are. Now, our brains, as far as I know, don't grow 30% at any time during the year. But it would be kind of nice if they did. And I know there's also some other smart people, some doctors that are trying to figure out if whatever happens here in the chickadee's brain can help humans with dementia, Alzheimer's and other diseases that we get when we age sometimes, diseases of the brain. So the chickadee brain expands during the winter, and then it shrinks back down in the springtime when it doesn't really need to remember where all those seeds are. Remember, in the springtime, that chickadee is almost 100% looking for insects to feed its babies. And even in the wintertime, about 50% of its diet is insects. So that kind of speaks to how important or how many insects they need if they are caching thousands of seeds, in the fall for the winter. But you can see that I've got the note down there that jays and nuthatches, the same thing happens to them as well, because they store nuts and they need to remember, or seeds, and they need to remember where they are. As a kid, I just thought there was hibernation, and that was like the one word for an animal, kind of going to sleep in the wintertime. So there's a few different, I guess, explanations or words to kind of describe that. Torpor is the state of lowered physiological activity, reducing the metabolism, heart rate, respiration, and body temperature that occurs in different degrees in hibernating and estivating animals. So estivating is what an animal does in the summertime. So if you ever find a turtle just kind of buried in the mud or something, he or she is trying to get away from the heat, and the same thing kind of happens to it. The metabolism just kind of slows down, and it kind of gets it through that really tough period. But hibernation is extended periods of deep torpor, okay, in mammals. And then brumation is a word that kind of more applies to reptiles and amphibians. And it can be extended, but oftentimes, especially in our state, it's just kind of short periods. Think about snakes. I was really looking at the ground yesterday because there's rattlesnakes and water moccasins and copperheads around Congaree National Park, and we were walking through some pretty wild areas while we were birding for the Christmas bird count. And my two buddies had snake boots on, but I didn't. So I was just really looking down quite a bit because it was like 60 or 65 yesterday. And it wasn't really that cold. So, the brumation, when we think about snakes, they do come out, even though they might be a little sluggish during the wintertime, they do come out because they're not, a deep sleep. Like we think of with certain mammals in really cold areas, throughout the entire winter. They will come out, snakes, and reptiles and amphibians on those warmer days in the winter. Daily torpor, or short periods of torpor, describes what, a chickadee, maybe not here in South Carolina because we don't get, -30, -20 really, at all. But you know, in higher elevations or in more northern states, Alaska, sometimes it's -30, -40, and that chickadee needs to go into that short period of torpor at night, and it drops its body temperature. If it's really, really cold, they'll all congregate in a snag or somewhere else, and to kind of maintain their body warmth. So what can you do on your property to kind of provide this habitat to help these animals out in winter? So brush piles, again, please. Snags, if you have a dead tree that's still standing and it's not, you know, a threat to you or anybody that might visit your property, you know, keep those snags up. It's awesome to see chickadees dive into those little holes in them, or maybe a brown-headed nuthatch or a tufted titmouse. Keep those stumps there if you can. You know, there's all sorts of where those roots are, they decompose, and there's all sorts of awesome holes and cavities and chambers where snakes and opossums and skunks can seek shelter. Prairie areas, you know, they're nice and dense with vegetation or some kind of litter, whether that's leaf litter or grass litter. You know, there's debris, right? Not the litter, you know, plastic stuff, but the good litter. And then, you know, of course, leaf litter once again. So all great habitat. So we picked up a lot of trash the other day at Archer's Lake, and there's this new thing called plurting, and it's picking up trash. It comes from, I think it's like a Swedish, it's called plocka up. And so they just kind of combine that with birding. So it's plurting. And I was just trying to figure out how you would do that if you were picking up trash while you were salamandering. And I guess that's like pluandering. I don't know. Y'all figure that one out and email me, please. But anyhow, like, you know, wherever you go, try to pick up some trash, please. So the marbled salamander, while we were birding yesterday, the one on the right-hand side, we flipped over a log and boom, there it was. And that's my first one. It's a relatively common salamander, but just look how gorgeous that thing is. It really does look like marble, right? Probably about, if I remember correctly, about 4 inches long, nice chunky salamander. But found, you know, we were Congaree National Park, floodplain, right? So we found it where it says on the internet you should find it, or on the the Savannah River Ecology Lab's website. So low-lying floodplains to, you know, wooded hillsides. So you don't have to be right there in a damp floodplain to find this one. But typically under rocks and decaying, you know, material that is nice and damp. Or you might find a red salamander. They're in the mountains, Piedmont, upper coastal plain. So y'all down there around Somerville or down at the coast, y'all probably won't find these, but maybe you will. I'm not sure. I've never gone down there to look for salamanders. Although I know y'all have some. But most common around streams and springs and small creeks where clean water is. Okay. So they can be affected negatively by dirty water or polluted water. So a great time to look for salamanders is right now. So December to the end of February, those nasty days, go out there, get you a nice little parka, nice little waterproof jacket on, and go flip some logs and look under some leaf litter and see what you find. We have a huge variety of salamanders, and most of them are quite stunning. So, you know, just because the birds aren't here and it's not 70 degrees doesn't mean that you have to stay inside. So go find some beautiful, colorful salamanders this winter. The eastern gray squirrel, I love it. You know, a lot of people don't love it because it eats all their bird seed, but just put a predator guard up and you'll be fine. Just make sure it's, you know, far away from a tree, about, you know, 7-8 feet from a tree, and you shouldn't have them able to reach your bird feeder. But they are food for wildlife. If you've never seen a hawk hunt a squirrel, just go to Columbia or go to Greenville, maybe, you know, places down in Charleston. But I mean, I see it most often in Columbia, where red-tailed hawks and red-shouldered hawks quite often get squirrels while we're just walking down, you know, the street. It's kind of interesting and fun to see sometimes. We were actually walking down at a park in a nature park in Little Mountain, and all of a sudden a red-shouldered hawk was flying by us, and it saw us, and it got spooked, and it dropped a squirrel that was in its talons, and we quickly left because we figured the bird would come back and grab its meal. But they hunt them quite readily, and they're pretty good at catching them in city areas. But they also build forests. You know, they disperse seeds all over the place. Think about a squirrel in the fall/wintertime burying 10,000 seeds. And even though they remember where around, 40, 50, 60, 70% of them are, that's still leaving thousands of seeds underground. And so they are burying them all over the place. And then, from there, forests are created. And I did read some, I can't remember, I think it was from Purdue University. There was a study that was done that people, the scientists that were involved in the research said that they would eat the acorns first that had like grubs or some kind of insect damage, and then they would only, or almost only, plant the healthy seeds. So I thought that was just kind of interesting. So they are good at regenerating forests that were either burned or damaged or cleared. And blue jays are great at that too. With acorns, they do some of the same stuff that the squirrels do. To tell the difference between a squirrel nest and like a hawk nest, squirrel nests are big. I know hawk nests can be pretty big too. They're usually around 2 feet in diameter, but that internal chamber is just really small. And it's usually lined with some fur, some grasses, maybe some moss. I have a screech owl box, and I was going to clean it out one year, and I reached in and I felt warm and fuzzy on my hand, not inside. And it was a mama squirrel with some babies. And she was just like, she was all curled up, even though they're kind of big, she was just all curled up in this really small cavity that she made. So I closed it, left her in there, so she can be food for owls and other birds. Let's see here. Oh yeah, this is just really interesting. As a kid, I used to go out squirrel hunting with my dad, and it was just really fun and awesome. We ate squirrel. My mom even made teriyaki squirrel one time. But they're prey for all sorts of things, like snakes, birds, mammals. Skunks eat them. But the squirrels also eat frogs. They eat small snakes, bird eggs, baby birds, insects, mushrooms, buds, flowers, all sorts of things. One time I was birding and I heard a ton of commotion. All of a sudden, 3 different types of warblers were around. There were Carolina wrens around making just all sorts of noise. It was a squirrel that was raiding the Carolina wren nest. And so all these birds were kind of ganging up on that squirrel. So, we don't usually think about squirrels being predators, but they are. And, that's one of that's one of the animals that we think most when we think winter. They're just kind of all over the place, and the leaves aren't on the trees anymore. So they're even easier to see. And I don't know if y'all saw this over here to the left, but one of the nemesis animals of the squirrel is a timber rattlesnake, or even an eastern diamondback. There's a timber rattlesnake right here. Brandon Ergel took this picture, and that's why you got to be careful whenever you're walking through the woods. Look at that camouflage. It is just perfect, right? So if I'm a squirrel, I'm walking down here, don't really see anything, and I get snatched up by that great timber rattlesnake right there. So they love a good squirrel snack from time to time. And for all y'all, the people that want me to talk about this, here we go. We're going to talk about birds just for a second, because I know we cover that quite a bit throughout the year. But here's the pine warbler, another picture by Cameron Foster. One of my favorite pictures of a beautiful male pine warbler, just really bright yellow. But that is one of the birds that we get more of, even though that bird stays here throughout the year, the entire year. We get more of them in the wintertime because they are a short distance migrant. So we get the ones that are further north to come here and overwinter. So sometimes you can have 10 or 12 at your feeder, as long as you have enough food. But you get things like red-bellied woodpecker at your suet, northern flicker. So if you want a northern flicker to do this, you have to have a platform feeder like this. They like, oftentimes they like eating on the ground. You know, you'll see them with robins and dark-eyed juncos sometimes in the wintertime in mixed flocks, but have a nice platform feeder like this, that they will come to a suet cage, you know, like this too. But you see them quite often on something that kind of mimics the ground. So this platform feeder right here. But if you have this and you have these, this nice little feeder with a hopper that you don't have to fill all the time and it keeps it nice and dry, you'll have a lot of bird diversity. And then if you have one of these cylindrical feeders that you can put like thistle seed in, you'll have these beautiful American goldfinch, maybe some pine siskin if they're back this year, which I haven't heard of yet. And some chickadees and maybe some other finches coming to you. So, you know, we have the seed and we have the bird food that you can buy, but don't forget about the insects. Okay. So, most of these birds continue eating insects during the winter. Okay. And that leaf litter, I mean, we probably had, you know, 40 to 60 robins with northern flickers, with yellow rump warblers, with dark-eyed juncos feeding in the leaf litter on a really cold day this February, and it was raining, but it was absolutely covered with birds and they were all looking under the leaf litter. So not just that, but your trees with the bark, you know, the native trees, they're going to have eggs in them, they're going to have larvae in them, they're going to have insects, you know, still in them. So native plants, insects, that's where they can find a lot of good protein and nutrition and fat during the winter. These birds can. And, you know, I'll keep it relatively short. Usually I keep on blabbering on for over an hour, but this is y'all's lucky day. We'll keep it under an hour today. Y'all have a good Christmas. Have a good holiday season. Thanks for joining us. We do have some volunteer opportunities coming up. One's early February, planting trees, which I don't have listed, but we have another one coming up at Camp Discovery. I think this is the 3rd or 4th year we've done it. We go out there when we clean out, I think there's over 30, around 35 or so bird boxes. We take the data and then we give it to Camp Discovery and they use it for their students that come to their classes. Let's see, that winter, I already talked about the Finney Swamp Park walk that we're going to have. We haven't posted for it. We've got Forks, Knives, and Spoonbills coming up in Aiken, and then another one in Columbia. And we just got our bird boxes in. So if you want to see little baby screech owls like this, you know, come and get one. It's a perfect Christmas gift. We have bird boxes for bluebirds and tufted titmouse and brown-headed nuthatch. So if y'all are bad like me and you need something for a relative or a friend still, even though Christmas is just a few days away, we might be you know, good for you. Any questions out there, BB?
Or coffee. They can get coffee too as well.
Or a cool hat.
Or cool hat, exactly. And we do have another webinar coming up that needs to be added, and that is going to be February 10th, and that's a fly fishing, an intro to fly fishing webinar. So mark that on your calendar as well. But yeah, the only other question that I really saw was about the birds, you know, the parasitic bird sort of putting an egg in and letting someone else raise it. Is there a term for that bird that leaves her egg in someone else's nest?
So let's see, brown-headed cowbird parasitizes other birds. So it's basically, I mean, parasite is, if you read about it, I guess the action word is
parasitic.
Yeah.
So it's a parasitic. It's a parasitic relationship. I just didn't know if there was something that it was specifically named. But
I think that term is accurate and correct. But you know that it happens. You know, I saw a brown-headed cowbird baby being fed by a tiny northern parula female in this tiny nest, and there might have been 1 or 2 other northern parula babies in it, and this cowbird baby was, you know, I don't know, 2 or 3 times the size of this mother, you know, the adult that was feeding it.
Right.
And-
They don't seem to mind or even notice that there's a whole different species living in their nest. I don't know.
Yeah, and we won't get into that right now. I mean, there's all sorts of cool things that are done by the adult bird whose nest it's being laid in, and by the brown headed cowbird female in retaliation if one of those eggs are removed. So there's all sorts of crazy stuff that goes on. It's not happening right now because it's wintertime. But you know, hey, come to a class in the springtime and we'll chat about that as long as you want.
Betsy Russell said the term would be brood parasites. So thank you very much. And
There you go. Nice job.
we are on St. Andrews Road in Columbia. You can find our address on our website. It's 455 St. Andrews Road. If you need to pick something up for your Christmas or holiday gift giving. So we thank y'all all for joining us.
Yeah. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, just holler at us or just send me an email, jay@scwf.org, and I'll be happy to answer that. And if I don't have the question or the answer, I'll get it for you. So y'all be good. Happy holidays, and we'll see you at the next webinar. Appreciate y'all.